that you have in the chat. Thank you. Thank you again for joining us today. I'd like you to share questions in the chat if you do have questions that come up. We will try to address questions as we go through the presentation, as well as at the end of the presentation. We'll leave time for some questions and answers as well. And then, of course, we are always happy to be a resource to set up a time to meet with you via Zoom or in person, or through one of our future events that we'll have for you to continue to ask questions, to learn more so that we can help you along the way. In thinking about our upcoming events, I do want to share a couple that are just on the horizon. Tomorrow, we're hosting an intensive weekend information session between 11:30 and 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Next week on Saturday, March 4th, we're hosting an open house highlighting our MSW program and the 3 formats that we teach that program in, as well as our Masters of Nonprofit Organizations program. It's kind of a full day of activities. We'd love for you to join us if you're able to. And then there's a couple additional events that will be coming up as well, as you can see. We have a specific Masters of Nonprofit Organizations open webinar, and then a admitted international student webinar as well, where colleagues from our Office of International Student Services and our Assistant Dean for Student Services will be joining us to talk through the visa process, the I-20 process, and kind of next steps related to onboarding international students. And finally, to connect with us with regards to events, please scan the QR code. You'll be able to see a number of our upcoming events, including the impact talks that feature our faculty throughout Social Work Month, which is the month of March. Every Wednesday, we're hosting a faculty talk. It's basically kind of a faculty TED Talk in a way, about 20 minutes. The last one at the end of the month is featuring our dean, which is really exciting, as well as 3 other faculty members within our school, talking about a lot of really great topics and work that they're doing within the community. So I encourage you to join us. All of our impact talks can be viewed via live stream or in person. So there's some options for you to join us, whether it be virtually or in person. On that note, I'm going to pass it off to Julie to talk through some of our programs, as well as the tuition and fee structure.
Yeah, so just a brief overview of our Mandel School graduate programs. We have 2 degrees in our school, the Master of Social Work and the Master of Nonprofit Organizations. With the MSW, we have 3 program formats. So you can complete it full-time in 4 semesters, or you can complete it as a part-time student in the online or the intensive weekend program, which takes 8 semesters. Our program does fulfill the licensure requirements in all 50 states. We're also ranked number 9 based on the US News and World Reports. And then with our Master of Nonprofit degree or MNO degree, there's a certificate option available. As far as the degree option, it's a 39 credit hour program that can be completed part-time or full-time. It's one of only 9 accredited nonprofit organization degrees in the world, housed within our School of Social Work. So there are a variety of support systems at the university and at the Mandel School to support students with financial aid. So our goal is to support students from the time they enter the program to graduation. And we assist with scholarship support. Our full-time students are eligible for the Field Award stipend. It's one of, I think it's one of the only programs that offer a stipend for field work. We also host financial literacy workshops. Our student engagement team is awesome. They plan a lot of different student activities. And then you're also assigned to a student advancement advisor once you start the program, and they kind of help you navigate the resources at Mandel and the university as well. University-wide, we have an Office of Student Financial Services. So they assist with everything related to billing and payment plans. Our registrar's office has a Veterans Services certifying official. So we do accept veteran benefits for tuition. So they're really helpful with figuring that stuff out. Our University Financial Aid Office helps us in putting together the actual financial aid packages for our students. And then lastly, our Office of Student Employment assists us with the Field Award stipend. So when it comes to paying for your graduate education, there are a few different types of costs. The first is called a direct cost. So essentially that is anything that's billed by the university. So that's tuition and fees. The other type of costs related to attending graduate school are indirect costs. So anything related to funding your education that's not charged by the university, such as living expenses, books, and supplies. So for the academic year 2023 to 2024 coming up, this is how our tuition is structured. So essentially, if you take between 1 and 11 credit hours, you're charged per credit hour. And then if you're a full-time student taking anywhere between 12 and 18 credit hours, you're charged a flat rate per semester. If you take anything over 18 credit hours, you're charged the flat rate, and then you're charged the per credit hour, each credit hour over 18. There are a few different types of fees. So we have mandatory fees. So that includes the graduate student fee, as well as the Mandel School fee. And those fees kind of go towards different student activities on campus. They go towards our student advancement office, puts on like lunch and learn events, which are awesome. And they also pay for the National Association of Social Work membership for students. Your first semester of the program, you're charged a fee for the field software called Tavera. So this is for MSW students only. So you wouldn't be charged that fee if you are a nonprofit student. There are a few different optional fees. So the health insurance fee is charged to students. The university requires students to have health insurance. So if you had your own, you'd be able to submit that proof to University Health Services and they would waive it. The other optional fee that gets charged to students is the one-to-one fitness fee. And that's one of the gyms on campus, but that is a fee that can also be waived. Most students waive that fee. So when it comes to indirect costs, our Central University Financial Aid Office provides kind of an estimate for books and supplies and living expenses, just so students have that option to borrow money to cover those expenses. However, it definitely is a bit of a high estimate, especially with like living in Cleveland. So these costs have not yet been finalized for the upcoming year, but it is an estimate. And so this kind of just once again shows the breakdown of tuition and fees. So this is what it would look like if you were a full-time student in our MSW program. It would be similar if you're in the nonprofit program as well, but you wouldn't pay that field software fee. Keep in mind that this is all before scholarships and financial aid is applied. If you're a part-time student, so in the intensive weekend program or the online program, you're charged per credit hour. So this is kind of an example of what it would look like once you would start out, because you take a different number of credit hours each semester. So that just kind of shows the first few semesters if you're in intensive weekend. And if you are an intensive weekend student, you're not charged the RTA fee, and you're also able to waive the health insurance and one-to-one fitness fee as well. And then the online fee structure is a bit different. So instead of the Mandel School fee and graduate fee, you would be charged per credit hour for student fees.
Thanks, Julie. There was a question in the chat about the RTA pass fee, and kind of if we could talk a little bit more about that. Do you want to share a little bit about the RTA fee?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. So that is our transportation system in Cleveland. So you would pay the fee once per semester and you would have access to the bus system in Cleveland.
This is a fee that is voted on, I believe, annually by all graduate students. And essentially, if collectively graduate students vote for the fee, or vote to buy into the semester pass, then it's charged to students' accounts. In the future, if there's a vote that basically turns it down, then it would then be removed for future years. But currently, for the past, I believe, 2 to 3 years, it has been voted on by our student body. Correct. So intensive weekend and online students have been waived from that requirement. And the rationale behind that is that because most of those students, most of the intensive weekend and online students live outside of Cuyahoga County and therefore may not be able to regularly utilize that pass, the university has allowed those students to have that fee removed. So it is something that they were fortunately considering as part of that process. So when students say don't live in this area, they're not charged that. It is specific to, you could say, Cuyahoga County or the Cleveland RTA system. It includes both busing as well as the metro line. So for example, there's a little train line that the one of the trains goes, let's just say, from the airport all the way through kind of Ohio City in the downtown area, actually to really close to campus, about a 5-minute walk from our building, and Little Italy is the station that's closest to us. So it is a convenient way for those traveling to the Cleveland Hopkins Airport to get there and back, ultimately then free if you have the pass. So in thinking about how to support you as a student financially, we recognize as a private institution, you're making a big investment in your future, and we want to support you as much as possible. In order to do that, we try to ensure that every student that's admitted to our program receives some type of scholarship support. Regardless of the program that you're coming into, our goal is to provide you with some type of scholarship support. Now, each of our programs does have a different endowment structure and scholarship levels. So there are some differences between each of our formats based on those those funding levels, but our goal once again is to try to provide you with as much support as possible to help you achieve your goals and be able to pursue our program. So a couple of the ways in which that happens. So first and foremost, as I said, scholarship support. So with our scholarship support, there's not a separate application process. All you have to do is apply to our program to the specific degree and format that you're interested in, and you're automatically considered for that. The second part of that is for all of our full-time students in the MSW program, we provide you with a stipend. So that is something that's unique to our school, that we have a really strong commitment recognizing that our full-time students don't have necessarily the same flexibility to work as many hours as our intensive weekend and online programs are designed for working professionals. Our full-time program is really designed for students that are going to be in the program full-time. And so with a limited amount of options to be able to work beyond, say, 15 to 20 hours a week part-time, the field hours take up a lot of time during your program. Essentially, you'll be completing 900 hours of field hours over the course of your 2-year degree. And so because of that, the school has committed a stipend support to students. The current stipend award is $3,000 a semester or $6,000 a year. And so that I'll talk a little bit more about in the future as we go through slides, but is a nice commitment from the school to provide that level of support to students. A couple other areas in which we're trying to provide support. There's a number of research and training programs. Many of these are designed for students in their second year of the social work program, or if you're advanced standing, in your first year with advanced standing. So it kind of depends on what type of format you're coming into or level you're coming into, but there are some research and training programs as well. We also offer continuing student scholarships for students that are moving into future years, whether it be your second or third year, depending on if you're in the full-time program or one of our part-time program options. We have a dedicated financial aid staff member, Julie, who's with us this evening, who's really committed to you and your success. So, for many of you or some of you who are on the call today that have been admitted, she either has or will be very soon reaching out with a more personalized kind of breakdown of what the overall tuition is based on kind of what your scholarship is. And then also she's factoring in what type of financial aid eligibility you would have through federal aid programs to kind of show what options exist that go beyond the support that our school is directly providing. We also have some resources for external scholarships, and we'll have some information on that as well as we move through this program. And then, of course, navigating the federal aid process and student loans. And once again, Julie can help support you in this process, as well as her coordination with the University Central Financial Aid Office is really helpful in this process. So to talk a little bit about our scholarship supports and the programs that are available. So our largest scholarship program is the highest amount of scholarship program is through our Leadership Fellows program. This is a competitive full tuition scholarship program designed for our full-time students. The application deadline typically for future years and for example, for this fall 23 was January 15th. We have kind of a two-tiered early priority deadline, one that was December 1st and then one that was January 15th. And students that applied by either of those dates are eligible or were eligible for the Leadership Fellows program. This is a process that takes a little bit of time. So the Leadership Fellows Committee is actually working right now on making selections for this coming year. They typically notify students in either late February or early March. The goal is by mid-March, they've identified all of their finalists. This is being a competitive program. For those of you who are looking for future years, it is really important that you apply by one of our early deadlines to ensure consideration in this process. So it is one thing to emphasize as you look for potentially for future years and applying to the program. It is important that students do apply by the at least by the January 15th deadline at the very latest for this scholarship. Beyond that, our school provides a number of Mandel School scholarships. Many of these are partially funded through our endowments. We have just over 60 endowments that provide various levels of scholarship support. Really, the range of support that's provided in most cases is somewhere between $10,000 a year up to half tuition. That's kind of a majority of where our scholarships fall with both our social work and nonprofit management programs on campus. Some of these are named on behalf of the generous donations from alumni, from friends of the institution, or from other foundations that are supporting students pursuing graduate education in social work and nonprofit management. Similar to the Leadership Fellows, this process does not require any additional requirements from you as an applicant. It just requires that you apply to the program. These scholarships are awarded at the time of admission. So what that means is, in many cases, for some of you on the call, when you received your admission decision, you actually received scholarship information at that same time. And that's really what this represents. So even though the Leadership Fellows takes longer to finalize, this process is determined really at the point that the committee decides, the admission committee decides to admit a student. We want at that point in time to be able to notify you also of what type of scholarship you would be provided. So once again, this is provided at the time of admission. If there are any changes, or let's just say a student was awarded a $15,000 annual scholarship and then was awarded the Leadership Fellow, then it would just replace that scholarship and you would move into that higher award.
Excuse me, there's a question in the chat.
Also,
I'm sorry, can you hear me? I think that there's a bit of a lag. Can you hear me, Richard? Julie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm thinking, Richard must have gotten kicked out of the
Yes, I think
Zoom.
that perhaps he had some interference. There was a question in the chat about would students be notified about the Leadership Fellow notification by the March 15th deadline?
Yeah, so the faculty are currently working to review the applicants, and that is their goal, is to have their selected Leadership Fellows before that deadline.
Great, thank you.
Another question. Two different questions in the chat.
Yes, so a student is asking, is the scholarship available during admission, or may students reapply for their second year, or do they need to apply for their second year?
So the scholarship that you're awarded at the time of admission, you would receive the second semester or second year as well. But after your first year, there's actually a process where you can apply for additional scholarship funding. They're called continuing student scholarships.
Another question, the issue of an official transcript or unofficial transcript, does that play any role in the decision process for us in terms of scholarship level, Julie?
So that does not play a role. So it's okay if the transcript that you submitted at first was unofficial, since it's for review. But when you do get admitted and confirm your enrollment, then we would need to have your official transcript on file.
My apologies. the joys of internet and Zoom, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. So I apologize about that. I did not expect to be kicked out. So once again, I apologize. Thanks for answering some questions in the meantime.
Yes. So there is a question about, to clarify, when students have submitted their full application, they have automatically been, their application automatically qualifies them for the Leadership Fellow. Is that correct, Julie?
Correct. There's not a separate application process.
And is Case Western Reserve University part of the Fulbright Scholarship Program?
So yes, we would accept scholar or Fulbright scholars to join us. The Fulbright Scholarship Program is really funded through Fulbright. So we have had Fulbright scholars in the past. We do not have one currently, but that would be an opportunity if you've received that funding through the Fulbright Foundation. Thinking about those types of partnerships and other opportunities, we do have a number of partnerships with external organizations and institutions. So I wanted to highlight some of those. Case Western Reserve University developed a partnership with about 12 other historically Black colleges and universities throughout the country, where we've established a North Star graduate program that provides a 50% scholarship support from our program to students that graduated from one of those 12 partners. I know they've looked at increasing those numbers, so those numbers may have slightly changed recently, but there's about 12 different institutions that we've partnered with. And so essentially, if let's just say you were a Howard University graduate and you were admitted to our program, we would guarantee you a 50% scholarship towards our MSW or our M&O program. Institutionally, for some of your friends or colleagues that may also be exploring graduate school, many of the other schools offer anywhere between 30 and 50%. Our division is specifically awarding 50%. Two other organizations we have partnerships with. One includes the Coverdell Fellowship for Returned Peace Corps volunteers. If you're currently serving in the Peace Corps or recently or have completed service in the Peace Corps, you'd be eligible to receive this Coverdell Fellowship, which is also a 50% scholarship. If you are a senior or you're concurrently applying to graduate school and the Peace Corps, if you elect to move into the Peace Corps, let's just say you're admitted to our program as well as admitted to the Peace Corps, and decide to do the Peace Corps, we'll defer your enrollment for those 2 years while you're pursuing the Peace Corps. It's an amazing experience and really worthwhile, and can really also enrich your experience in graduate school. So we support that, and we'll happily defer your enrollment to then join us in the future time once you return back to the US. And then finally, we have a partnership with City Year. City Year is a program where there's about 24, 25 different locations around the country, including Cleveland, Ohio. It's a 1-year program that's partially funded through the AmeriCorps structure. And so we have a partnership with City Year where students receive a scholarship equivalent to $18,000 a year. Collectively, from a percentage wise, it's roughly about 38 to 39% off of tuition. To talk a little bit about the Field Award. So the Field Award is technically paid through student employment because it's connection to your work at a field site. And what that means is you would receive $750 a month over the 4 months of a semester. So throughout the fall and spring terms, for say this next year, students are receiving $750 a month from September all the way through April. It's a total of 8 months, which totals $3,000 each semester, or a total of $6,000 for the year. There are a couple additional training programs that can provide sometimes additional boosts or changes to that field award. So I'm going to jump over the first one real quick, but there's a program through HRSA, the Health Resources and Services Administration. It's a behavioral health training program that advanced standing students are eligible for in your year with us, as well as for traditional students doing the 2-year program, you would be eligible for this in your second year. And what this provides is a $10,000 stipend to students, or $5,000 each semester. So instead of $3,000, it actually bumps up to $5,000 a semester. It's focused in a couple different areas, specifically listed: the opioid crisis, substance use, child and adult behavioral health, as well as interdisciplinary trauma-informed practice. So there's a lot of unique opportunities with this particular HRSA grant. We would be happy to connect you with Amy Korsch, who is the faculty lead on this particular grant, and can share information about what that would look like, especially if you're an advanced standing student exploring your options for this next year. She has, or I should say, this grant has a very large number of training opportunities. So many times when students, including advanced standing students, are interested in these areas, she's able to help secure a placement for you to be able to leverage this larger stipend. The one above it, the Trauma-Informed Practice Fellowship, is designed for second-year students. It's focused on the neurosequential model of therapeutics, which is a trauma-informed evidence-based intervention developed by Dr. Bruce Perry. And so two of our faculty members have been trained on the ability to now train others on this particular model. And so this incorporates some requirements within a student's first year that don't directly relate to credit hours, but are really great professional development opportunities. And then in their second year, or in the spring semester, they would apply for this particular fellowship to receive in their second year. And through that, you would enroll in a 3-credit-hour course, or a course actually that totals 3 credits within your first and second semester of your second year. And in conjunction with that academic course, you would then be certified in this particular model of the NMT model. So it's both an opportunity professionally to gain these skills, but then also there's some additional funding opportunities as well with it. Now, I mentioned earlier that each of our formats has sometimes a little bit of a different structured scholarship program. So since our intensive weekend and online programs are designed truly for working professionals, like you really can't be a full-time student, let's just say, within these formats just because of the sequence of the courses. They're great options if you're wanting to maintain a job or a really strong kind of work-life balance and pursue this program. And so because of that, we've kind of really tried to design a scholarship model that kind of fits those patterns, as well as allows you leverage to ask your employer for additional support. And so the intensive weekend scholarship awards students a 35% scholarship off tuition. So really almost all of our students within intensive weekend, unless they're in a special partnership program, such as Coverdell or City Year, North Star, or a partnership with an agency that the school has maybe developed a relationship with. All of these students are receiving a scholarship equivalent of 35% off tuition. In our online program, students are receiving, if they're from Ohio, a scholarship up to $20,000 that's then divided out over the course of the program, or out-of-state residents are awarded a scholarship up to $15,000 that's divided then over the course of the program. When I say this divided over the course of the program, each intensive weekend and online are kind of structurally very similar. If you have advanced standing, it's divided, the program is divided over 5 semesters. If you're a traditional student completing the full 60 credits, your program is divided over the 60 credits is divided over 8 semesters. And so, so then these scholarships are then kind of evenly really distributed over those semesters. So one of the things we always recommend is students explore external scholarships. This could be as simple as, for those working and completing the program, looking to your employer and seeing if there are any structured tuition benefit options. If there's not, it's worth asking, because many employers are looking at their employees and wanting to retain you. Many times they're looking at their employees are looking at you and thinking, you know, how can we help invest? And so whether it be $500 or $1,000 or more, every little bit can really help you to be more successful in paying for the overall program. We do have a list, so I encourage that you scan this QR code on our website of external scholarships that are really with outside organizations. And so this is a very comprehensive list. We've tried to bucket it into kind of areas or themes to kind of help organize the list. Many of these scholarships were identified by our students. Some of them students have received recently, others it's been a long time, but we've tried to keep it updated so that future students or current students can utilize the list to explore opportunities that you could then use really wherever you go. Of course, we want you to join us and pursue our program, but these really are external opportunities that are designed for students pursuing graduate education. On the left-hand side of the screen, we've tried to outline a couple very specific things to consider as well. So our accrediting body for social work, the Council on Social Work Education, does have a couple of scholarships designated for students pursuing MSWs. And so it's worthwhile to explore their website. For example, the Minority Fellowship Program is one of those. The National Association of Social Workers is another great resource as well. Sometimes you'll find opportunities very specific to concentrations and specializations or through local organizations and governments. And then finally, things like the FAST Web is a common location for both undergraduate and graduate scholarship opportunities that's worth exploring. When thinking about other sources of aid, if anyone has completed the AmeriCorps or in the process of completing AmeriCorps programs, students are able to utilize their Siegel Education Award towards your program. So you could elect to utilize that to pay towards down tuition. You could utilize that to help with additional living expenses, or you may utilize it to pay off other student loans that you may have. There's also veteran benefit opportunities. We do participate as a yellow ribbon program. So it is a great opportunity that if you can utilize, whether it be the yellow ribbon or VOC rehab or other types of veteran benefits, it's worthwhile to explore those. The VA also just recently announced some initiatives to fund and provide additional scholarship support for individuals interested in working, one within the VA within more of a mental health capacity. So they're looking at providing scholarship support for students pursuing social work education, counseling, or mental health-based programs, as well as psychology programs. So that could be also an option if you're interested in also then working within the capacity of a VA or community VA center. So in thinking about paying for the program, another option for students is to be, if you do have the ability to pay tuition, whether it be through your own resources, family resources, external resources, and or things like a 529 plan, you are able to set up a payment plan with the university. You can set up a payment plan either 4 or 3 months before a semester begins, or one that goes 2 months into a semester. So there are some opportunities to set up payment plans with the school as well. One of the areas in which many students look to utilize is federal loans as well. Federal loans at the graduate level are fairly structured. So it's a lot different than undergraduate aid. Many times at the undergraduate level, schools will stress, oh, you have to submit your FAFSA by a specific deadline. You have to get this in very early. Graduate level aid is much different and doesn't really follow the same types of deadlines. At the same time, For those of you looking to start this fall, it's worthwhile to begin, if you have not already, to complete the FAFSA for 2023-2024. And so you could begin working on that over the next couple weeks. Julie can help also answer these questions. And like I said, for admitted students, she'll be connecting personally with you, providing you with some really specific details about kind of your eligibility and kind of what aid might look like specific to you. Because ultimately, student loans, scholarship support is a very personal thing, because it's the scholarships may be based on your overall application, and those student loans are going to be based on kind of a number of different factors. When it comes to student loans at the graduate level, there's two types of loans that are provided. So at the graduate level, students are eligible for what are considered direct unsubsidized loans, and I should say, graduate plus loans. So the direct unsubsidized loan is very specific, where students are eligible for up to $20,500 over what's considered an academic year. For us, that means it's over 2 semesters. So essentially, every semester that a student is in our program, a student is eligible from a direct unsubsidized loan level, $10,250 in a direct unsubsidized loan. So then the next type of loan that a student would then look to, if you're utilizing student loans to pay the balance of the program, or look to utilize student loans for, say, optional living expenses, would be through a graduate plus loan. Now, a graduate plus loan requires one additional step beyond really completing the FAFSA and being eligible for federal aid, and it requires a credit check. It's not looking for really a long credit history. It's really looking to see if a student has a past, they defaulted on a student loan or had a bankruptcy within the past few years. So it's not looking at the same thing that maybe if you went to buy a car or a house is looking at. With the Graduate Plus loan, the amount is eligible up to what's considered the cost of attendance. And that's where this includes those indirect costs and living expenses. As Julie mentioned, this is a critical point where you want to connect with Julie, because the amount of indirect costs that the university technically budgets is truly so much more than what most graduate students need in Cleveland, Ohio, in our program. And so it's really worthwhile to kind of either on your own or with working with Julie to kind of set up a budget to make sure that you're not taking out too much aid, because at the end of the day, through federal aid, the federal government makes it very easy to take out more than you truly need. And so she can really help kind of help you navigate that to minimize that overall student loan. When it comes to these programs, unsubsidized loans, payments are deferred until 6 months after graduation. And with Graduate Plus loans, the payments are deferred until graduation. The benefits of student loans, honestly, through utilizing federal student loans, is they offer a lot of flexible repayment plan options. Once again, this is where having somebody within our school to support MNO and MSW students, it can be really valuable. So when you go to graduate, there's a couple different options, whether it be a standard repayment plan, which is essentially the amount is divided over 10 years, a graduated repayment plan, which spreads out the balance over maybe 15, 20, 25 or more years. Or many students who are then looking to utilize public service loan forgiveness look to an income-based repayment plan, because that's kind of the structure that the income-based or the public service loan forgiveness program is really wanting or needing students to be in. And so, so this is once again something that as students go to graduate, there'll be programming and support both through our office as well as through Central Financial Aid to help provide that support. So I mentioned public service loan forgiveness. Some of you may have explored that already. Some of you may have already completed this from your undergraduate program or other graduate program that you've attended. So now that we've kind of gone past the 10 years of this program being in existence, more and more alumni, more and more individuals are benefiting from public service loan forgiveness. Essentially what this is requiring, I mentioned that students kind of consolidate their loans in an income-based repayment plan, which really then limits the amount of your monthly payment to a percentage of your net income. It does require that students make 120 on time, full kind of scheduled monthly payments. They do not have to be consecutive. So if, for example, in the middle of those 10 years, you went back to school and those loans were kind of put on hold while you're in school, or maybe you had a child and put a hold on your student payments or something like that. At the end of the day, the total needs to be 120 payments, but it doesn't have to be consecutive. So for some students, it may take 11 or 12 years because of taking breaks in those payments. It also requires students that work within a nonprofit organization or the US government. And so there's more information through studentaid.gov on this process and really understanding the logistics of it, but it is worthwhile highlighting for you to be more aware of. Other ways that students help kind of support themselves while in the program, many times trying to leverage kind of part-time employment so that you may not have to take out student loans to cover, say, living expenses and things like that, are through working on campus. Students working on campus typically work between 15 and 20 hours, though there are other positions that are, 8 or 9 or 10 hours, kind of depending on what you're looking for. This just highlights some of those opportunities. From an opportunity that goes beyond just a salary, or you could say an hourly wage, there are assistant residential community directors through the Office of Residential Life and Greek Life house directors through Greek Life that, in addition to providing a wage, they also provide housing. Kind of in return, you kind of oversee the management of that particular residence hall and maybe those RAs or the particular Greek house that maybe you'd be living in. So these are some unique opportunities. I will say that they tend to have very early deadlines. So for example, I know some of our potential incoming students were looking into applying and did apply for the residential community director positions, but those positions typically had an application deadline at the end of January, beginning of February. So for some, this is an opportunity to really look towards your second year and to kind of prepare during your first semester in the program to explore what all exists with these and to then look to maybe your second year within the program. I will say, I don't believe the Greek Life positions have been posted yet, but that is something that we can look into to find out more. There's also a number of opportunities through offices, both within the Mandel School and around campus. So in the Mandel School admissions, we hire student ambassadors. Our development office hires students as well. A number of the other offices within the school do, including our research centers. Across campus or around campus, the Office of Multicultural Affairs, the LGBT Center, our library, development as a whole, and some of the research centers around campus, say within the School of Medicine, have hired students. Many of these positions, or I should say some of these positions, students can secure just before you arrive on campus. So maybe in the summer when you begin getting access to Handshake, which is an online kind of job system within the school, you could begin exploring those opportunities. However, it's not uncommon just because of the nature of hiring. For example, with our roles, many times we're trying to hire students actually in the fall or mid-fall to late fall timeframe, where some of the positions you won't necessarily secure before you're here, but you may explore once you arrive on campus and start getting connected around campus. From a research and training perspective, there are opportunities with some of the research centers within our school. We're very fortunate that there's 9 research and training centers within the Mandel School, including 2 additional centers that our faculty lead that are university-wide initiatives, including the Social Justice Institute that has both hired as well as utilized practicum students, and then the Schubert Center for Child Studies as well. So there could be opportunities through each of these centers. The Center on Trauma and Adversity, they do a number of different types of research fellowships for students beyond the NMT fellowship. And so that's just an example of different ways in which students are supported. I'd be remiss to say or emphasize, for those of you who are not from Northeast Ohio, Cleveland is not only an amazing place to live, to eat, to explore, great food, I would say, in Cleveland, but it also has a really low cost of living. So we hear this often for people not from this area. Let's just say you're from California, not to call out Californians, but the cost of living in California is a lot more expensive than here in Cleveland. And students love the fact that they can come to graduate school. It's very affordable to live and just enjoy the community and connect with Cleveland. And then ultimately, your goal is probably to move back where you're originally from, and that's perfectly okay. We have over 9,000 alumni in all 50 states and about just over 40 countries. So there's a really strong network of alumni and a support system to really connect you across the board. One other thing I'll say about Cleveland is awesome for both social work and nonprofit management studies. So on the nonprofit management level, Cleveland really is the hub, historical hub, you could say, really, of many nonprofit organizations, like per capita with foundations and nonprofit organizations. It's really hard to beat the opportunities that exist here in Northeast Ohio. From a historical perspective, we're home to the Cleveland Foundation, which is one of the oldest and largest city foundations in the country. And the Community Chest, which is what led to the United Way, was founded here in Cleveland. On the social work front, I mentioned before with your field award in particular, or for those doing practicum work with the MSW, one of the number one things that I hear from both students and faculty is that Cleveland is one of the few places that students can really see the impact that they're making at their field site within the time that you're here. You're able to get really well, not just connected with the colleagues that you'd be working with, but to really see change and be able to implement the change that you're recommending within organizations, because it's not a huge city. I mean, it's a large city, but it's not overwhelming. And so it really allows kind of that ability to make change quickly and adapt. And that's something that students really value and can really gain additional leadership skills through this type of experience here in Cleveland, Ohio. So our goal is to help you be successful. What kind of sets us apart from a lot of other schools, kind of beyond the ranking, but honestly, what kind of supports our ranking of number 9 is the fact that we're really committed to student success. It really starts with our faculty and their commitment to the program, their willingness and kind of advocacy to always kind of tweak and make the program better, the classroom better, the experience better for our students, whether you're online, an intensive weekend, or full-time on campus. We keep our class sizes fairly small, so we want to make sure that we create a close interaction with you and our faculty and our community. From a support system structure, you're formally connected with 3 different types of advisors: a student success advisor that provides kind of more of the broader kind of opportunity to help be successful to connect you with resources. You're connected with a field faculty advisor to support you with field education. And then, of course, an academic advisor, a faculty member, to advise you on a more academic career level. We then provide a lot of connections with you and networking opportunities with our broader alumni network. The school is also developing an alumni mentorship program as well for students to be connected with alumni regionally, nationally, or internationally, based on either location or the type of work that you're interested in doing. As you may know, or both social work and nonprofit management offer a vast variety of opportunities when it comes to what you can actually do with the degree and how you can leverage the degree in the work that you're doing. We also provide career planning and licensure prep support. Part of your student fee helps fund essentially a free licensure prep course through LEAP that you would be taking typically in your last semester in the program. On that note, if you have not already, I encourage you to apply if you're wanting to start this coming fall in our MSW program, to apply by March 15th. Both for our full-time and intensive weekend. This was a slight typo, so ignore the January 15th piece. But our next deadline is March 15th for our Master of Social Work program. With online, because we enroll students in summer and fall, we have two different deadlines. So if you wanted to start this summer, you would need to apply by March 3rd. If you're wanting to apply in the fall, it would be June 16th. And then with our nonprofit management program, similar, we have a summer and fall enrollment. So you could either apply by April 1st for summer or July 1st for fall. Julie, myself, and Lisa are always happy to be a resource. This is Julie's contact information. Feel free to email her to connect with her. You can set up a Zoom meeting, answer questions. If you are able to join us for our open house on March 4th, I'd encourage you to do so. You can register online. If not, you could always set up, like I said, a Zoom call, or we could set up a personalized campus visit for you on another day that works for your schedule. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll open it up for some questions for a couple minutes. I know that we're just kind of at the 8 o'clock hour, so I want to be mindful of everybody's time. But I will close the presentation and open it up for some quick questions.
There were some questions in the chat, some rather quick ones, I think. Could you please define how the university categorizes and compensates graduate assistantships?
So in most cases at the master level, students are paid an hourly wage. And I would say that hourly wage generally ranges between $11 and $15 or $16 an hour, depending on where you are working within the school, or I should say within the university. So that is how our graduate kind of part-time opportunities within the school are paid at the master level. When you look to PhD programs, in particular our PhD in social work, there's a little bit of a different structure with their kind of assistantship, where they do provide full funding for tuition, as well as a specific dollar amount living stipend that students are awarded over the course of the year in return for some either research or teaching support.
The next question was, are employment opportunities available to part-time Mandel students?
Employment opportunities for students?
Uh-oh.
Yes. So you would be eligible to work part-time. Whoop, did I cut out?
You did cut out, Richard.
I apologize. Part-time students are eligible to work part-time as well. You would be limited though, or you would not be eligible for the live-in positions with the structure of those responsibilities. But other than that, working within, say, as a student ambassador or within a research center or other area, that would be definitely an option for you. I see a question. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I was going to say, I see a question about, I believe it's the National Health Service Corps. The National Health Service Corps is a program through, I believe it's the Department of Health and Human Services. It is an awesome program. And the way it's really structured, if it's the same one that I'm aware of, is that it's designed for clinicians, okay, to be working with underserved communities and organizations. So they have a list, the Department of Health and Human Services has a list of organizations that serve very specific communities. And through that, within those organizations, if you work for one of those organizations, following your receiving clinical licensure, and you work for 2 years, they will, based on what I'm aware of, they will provide $50,000 in tuition kind of reimbursement or support that gets paid directly to you towards your student loans. And so it really is a great opportunity for students. I emphasize that it does require the part for them to be covering those 2 years is based on you then receiving clinical licensure, which from an MSW perspective takes about 2 years after you graduate to fully receive that licensure. So from knowing another student, I know that a student has worked at an organization, say during those 2 years getting their licensure. Once they have it, then because they're working at an organization that serves in this capacity, they've been able to secure that funding after they've completed 2 years of additional service. So it is worthwhile exploring as a student and kind of looking into what types of organizations they are.
Richard, a question
So
a
the
little bit about
intensive-
curriculum. Is an IW student able to be a dual degree student and add a master's of nonprofit organization exclusively on the weekends?
So not exclusively. So about half of our M&O courses, nonprofit organization courses, are taught in the weekend format, and about half of them are taught in a weekly format, though they're in the evening. So it is something that if you were doing that dual degree, you would have to have some flexibility to do some evening courses. There was a question about the intensive weekend deadline. It has not passed. The next deadline for both intensive weekend and our full-time program is March 15th. So there is plenty of time to still apply for the intensive weekend program, and we are happy to help support you through that process. You will be assigned advisors. So you will be assigned right before you begin the program. Right before you begin the program in the summer, probably in either the end of May or beginning of June, you will be assigned a field faculty advisor. So that'll be the first person you're assigned to. Then in early July, you'll be assigned a faculty advisor and a student success advisor. The first one that's assigned is field, because for those that are in the social work program, they will begin working with you in the June timeframe. So whoever's assigned to you will start reaching out right away. Am I missing any questions? So there's a question about housing. So with regards to that, I think there's two things. One, we could always set up a Zoom meeting, actually, either with us or with one of our student ambassadors to talk about their experience finding housing and kind of how to explore that. We have a really great website that the university's developed, as well as a dedicated staff member at the university level to help graduate students find housing as well. So we can make that connection. From the payment plan or the installment plan, I think that may be something that would be worthwhile to set up a time with Julie, and she could kind of walk you through that a little bit more, or myself, and we could kind of walk through what that would look like. you do not have to confirm your enrollment to be eligible for the Leadership Fellows. So the key is just applying and being admitted. And so the committee does look at all of those applicants that are eligible for that consideration, and it is not an expectation that a student has committed to the program. We recognize that in some cases, this could really be a deciding factor. For those of you who are exploring options and really trying to navigate multiple schools and deciding kind of what works best for you, once again, we can also help you along in that process and be a resource. We want to help you find a program that'll help you to be successful. Of course, we want that to be Case Western Reserve University, but we can help kind of navigate all of those pieces. I think that's all of the questions. I just want to thank everybody for joining today. I appreciate your time. I want to emphasize our team, also beyond Lisa and Julie. We have an amazing team that's really here to kind of help support you to be successful. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions as you move along through the process. We are really excited to be working with each of you and look forward to supporting you. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to ultimately seeing you in the fall, or in a future fall. So please reach out as questions come up. Thank you.